What are you cats doing? I guess we're live. What are you doing, you rotten cat? Stop it, Smokey. Smokey, stop it. Knock it off. Who, me? I'm innocent. Rotten cat. Smokey is the most destructive cat I've ever had. Well, I'm back. I forgot to share the stream, and if I try to do that now, I'll lose the feed. Spray bottle, water, cat trainer. Smokey's the only one who requires it. Well, hi, Feral Pinto. Morning. I had to go around the corner and get cigarettes, and then I saw all these snacks and treats and got root beer so I could have a root beer float. Already had some ice cream. Yummy. Well, there's Jason and Ditch and Etsy Quintia is here. Etsy Quintia, I rambled and wandered for a while and read the book of Jude. I was going to go into Nephilim on this one. Oh, I got these donuts. This stuff will kill you. Don't eat it. Fortunately, I rarely eat it. Let me see. I got to do a search. Oh, apparently it's all right. 2 Peter chapter 2 verse 5 in the New American Standard Bible. I'm going to switch to the ESV, which is, oh, come on. Where is it? I've got ESV here, English Standard Version. Apparently there's a UK version that's anglicized, so they changed the spelling a little. Well, in the book of Jude, the angels that got naked, that's what left their proper dwelling really means, or in chains and in gloomy darkness. And let's see if I can get the it's either 2 Peter or 1 Peter. Yeah, it's 2 Peter. 2 Peter chapter 2. And of course, Genesis 6, the first few verses. Let's see what my chat room is doing. Yes, it's Sequentia. The Nephilim sounds like a good name for a sports team. Jason's driving. Yeah, Chuck Missler does good teaching on Genesis 6. And he's all over YouTube. I also supplement it with Michael Heiser because he's was, when he was alive, a scholar of the ancient languages. So he could tell you what the Hebrew words in the Bible really mean, and the Aramaic and Ugaritic. Sorry you have to check out, Oswald. I gotta have a bite of my evil, deadly. Mm-hmm. Donuts go really well with coffee or milk. Darn food bank keeps giving me 1% milk. It tastes like chalk. And I need the fat. I need the full fat milk. Oswald wants to know, what do I think Phil would think of the rise of Orthodox Christianity in the West? He'd probably like it. Personally, he was Episcopalian, but he respected the fact that the Orthodox Church does not have a pope. Each country has its own papa, which is pope, means father. Pope means father. Papa means father. Same word, different spelling. Rather than one pope ruling over all the churches around the world. He liked that. Anthony has started going to an Orthodox church. Well, welcome back, everyone. Let's hope the signal doesn't fail us. Root beer float. I have trouble using straws, so I usually do put one in a root beer float, but this time I did not. Oh, during the interlude, Oswald was listening to a British author saying Western Christianity has lost itself in materialism, while the Orthodox are maintaining the old mysticism. Yeah, with the rise of mega churches, that's true. They're, entertainments. They're big shows. They aren't really. Oh, and that was in a Romanian Orthodox setting. The what Oswald said. I just, in general, don't trust mega churches, but Billy Graham's son brought my son to the faith. He happened to be the pastor at a church that was local to us. I think Billy Graham was cut from a different cloth. Oh, the British author was Paul Kingsnorth. Oswald says there's a fine line between a mega church and a MAGA church. He made a pun. Okay. Oh, I got it. Hmm. Oh, itches right on my breastbone. It's an old wound. Tora did not mean to claw me. She was kneading me, and a claw got stuck in my skin. Oh, I don't know. Anyway, I got my cigarettes, I got my potato chips, and then I saw donuts and root beer, and I had to have them. Mm. Mm-hmm. The Church of England is running discos in the cathedrals. Whew. Well, I got two kinds of chips, and they're both evil. Lay's and Fritos. They're both made by Frito-Lay, which is part of PepsiCo, the makers of Pepsi Cola. It's that way with beef sticks and energy drinks. Well, energy drinks can kill you. If you overdo it, they won't kill you now. They'll just slowly give you things like heart disease and high blood pressure. No, Anthony, says you can dance to Eminem next to a Thomas a Becket shrine. No, that's you can't do that. Yeah, life can kill you. So can cigarettes. But you know what? As many people have said, when, for example, they refused cancer treatment, do I want to live a long, miserable life or a short, happy life? And many of them experienced spontaneous remission. But even if they did not survive, they were happier. It was their choice. Phil loved puns, especially Swifties. Like, now he used the scientific names, but I'll make it simple. I had my hearing checked and I got a colonoscopy. Tom said irascibly. That was his favorite. Red Bull. Actually, um, Red Bull has less caffeine than the same amount of coffee, but they're measuring real coffee brewed, and I've been drinking instant for so long because I'm lazy. I have real coffee. It does have less caffeine than real coffee. But I've here and there I have a cup of real coffee just to enjoy it. Etsy Quintia says to ditch, we don't have enough statistical data to support the notion that life can kill you. Oh, well, apparently life is a death sentence. So let's look at 2 Peter chapter 2. But false prophets also arose, just as there will be false teachers among you who secretly bring in destructive heresies, even denying the master who bought them, bringing upon themselves swift destruction. In other words, denying God. And many will follow their sensuality, and because of them, the way of truth will be blasphemed. And in their greed, they will exploit you with false words. Their condemnation from long ago is not idle, and their destruction is not asleep. And verse 4 is the target here. For if God did not spare angels when they sinned, but cast them into hell, and committed them to chains of gloomy darkness to be kept until the judgment, if he did not spare the ancient world, but preserved Noah, a herald of righteousness, with 7 others, when he brought a flood upon the world of the ungodly, if by turning the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah to ashes, he condemned them to extinction, making them an example of what is going to happen to the ungodly, and if he rescued Lot, greatly distressed by the sensual conduct of the wicked, for as that righteous man lived among them day by day, he was tormenting his righteous soul over their lawless deeds that he saw and heard. Then the Lord knows how to rescue the godly from trials, and to keep the unrighteous under punishment until the day of judgment, and especially those who indulge in the lust of defiling passion and despise authority. For a minute, Lot was tempted by the luxurious lifestyle in the city, while Abraham, Lot's uncle, stayed on the land with his herds of sheep and other livestock. But Lot was saved because he did not succumb to the orgies and the sacrifices to pagan gods. But the city had to be destroyed. They were apparently having or wanting to have sex with the angels. You want a link to the verse? Well, I have a link to the whole chapter. Okay, hang on. This is the Bible Gateway, and it's the ESV version. I love this chapter, and I never remember whether it's 1st or 2nd Peter. It's 2nd Peter, chapter 2. Well, anyway, that's the target there. Love root beer floats. Root beer by itself is good, but Lenny goes on. It's like what's in the book of Jude, but much more detailed and lengthy. Bold and willful, they do not tremble as they blaspheme the glorious ones. Well, that's why I don't have a cigarette. I didn't light it yet. Once I got the cigarettes, I wasn't jonesing for them as much because I knew I had. Bold and willful, they do not tremble, as angels, though greater in might and power, do not pronounce a blasphemous judgment against them before the Lord. In other words, these pagans are cursing the angels, but the angels are not cursing them because only God can do that. Although Balaam, with his donkey, was being paid to curse people. Okay, let's see, verse 12. But these, like irrational animals, creatures of instinct, born to be caught and destroyed, blaspheming about matters of which they are ignorant, will also be destroyed in their destruction, suffering wrong as the wage for their wrongdoing. I kind of like that, destroyed in their destruction. It is more than, I lost the word again, redundant. It's a strengthening, like utter destruction. They count it pleasure to revel in the daytime. They are blots and blemishes, reveling in their deceptions while they feast with you. Once again, they come to the agape feast, which is devolved into communion in some churches. It was a full feast, a full meal, bread, meat, fruit, wine, all kinds of goodies. Verse 14, they have eyes full of adultery, insatiable for sin. They entice unsteady souls. They have hearts trained in greed. Accursed children. So, checking back with the chat. Well, angels are not these little cherubs with wings. They can look just like us. Oh, hi, Witta. Um, um, yeah, ditch stuff with the puns. I'm trying to remember what the real word is because I'm stuck on your pun. Oh well, anyway. So 2 Peter is a lot like the book of Jude, but with much more detail. Now, where am I? So even their children are cursed. Where'd that go? Here we go, verse 15. Forsaking the right way, they have gone astray. They have followed the way of Balaam, the son of Beor, who loved gain from wrongdoing, but was rebuked for his own transgression. A speechless donkey spoke with human voice and restrained the prophet's madness. He was trying to find a way to curse the Israelites so he could get paid. If I remember correctly, the donkey refused to move and Balaam was beating it. And the donkey suddenly said, "Why are you beating me? Can't you see the angel who stands in our way?" Something like that. God was not going to allow it, even though he allowed many things that Balaam said and did. He did not allow him to do that. So, being a clever criminal, Balaam enticed the men of Israel to marry pagan women so they'd be corrupted by first the sex, but second, um, those women worshiped false gods. Well, there's more to the story, but we'll look at that after we get through this. Verse 17, these are waterless springs and mists driven by a storm. For them the gloom of utter darkness has been reserved. For speaking loud boasts of folly, they entice by sensual passions of the flesh those who are barely escaping from those who live in error. They promise them freedom, but they themselves are slaves of corruption. For whatever overcomes a person, to that he is enslaved. For if, after they have escaped the defilements of the world through the knowledge of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, they are again entangled in them and overcome, the last state has become worse for them than the first, for it would have been better for them never to have known the way of righteousness than, after knowing it, to turn back from the holy commandment delivered to them. What the true proverb says has happened to them. Oh, here we go. You've probably heard this and might not have known where it came from. The dog returns to its own vomit, and the sow, after washing herself, returns to wallow in the mire. And by the way, it doesn't say hell in the original Greek, it says Tartarus, which is where, in Greek myth, the rebellious gods were imprisoned, the Titans who rebelled against the Olympians during the war in heaven. Back to the chat. Seraphim, thank you. Ditch, that's a type of heavenly being. Or if you must, angel. And then there's cherubim. The cherubim are not cute little babies with wings. They are huge, tall guardians of the throne of God, and they're fierce. Oswald is grateful for 3 wrenches today. Did I miss something? Did somebody have to be booted? Did we get a troll? Okay, since Balaam seems to be a prime example, let's see if I can find it. Numbers 22, it looks like. Okay. Okay. So I'll give you a link to Numbers 22, all about Balaam and his donkey. Oh, I see. I didn't miss anything, but since Oswald has to leave early, there's backup. Etsy Quintia says parallels can be made between the sinners described and all kinds of modern day philosophies and their practices, especially when it comes to manipulating human psychology. You mean like when a narcissist convinces you that you're the problem? Well, that narcissist is using you and torturing you. Okay. I love the story of Balaam's ass. That is his donkey. Then the people of Israel set out and camped in the plains of Moab beyond the Jordan at Jericho. And we know the story of Jericho where the walls came a-tumbling down. All right, back to the text. And Balak, the son of Zippor, saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites, and Moab was in great dread of the people because they were many. Moab was overcome with fear of the people of Israel, and Moab said to the elders of Midian, "This horde will now lick us all, will now lick up all that is around us, as the ox licks up the grass of the field." So Balak, the son of Zippor, who was king of Moab at the time, sent messengers to Balaam, the son of Beor, at Pethor, which is near the river, in the land of the people of Ammon, to call him, saying, "Behold, a people has come out of Egypt. They cover the face of the earth, and they are dwelling opposite me. Come now, curse this people for me, since they are too mighty for me. Perhaps I shall be able to defeat them and drive them from the land, for I know that he whom you bless is blessed, and he whom you curse is cursed." Let's see, so it's the kingdom of Moab. Let me see if I can get a little background on it gave me Utah. I had to add Bible. The Moabites are said to have descended from Moab, the son of Lot and his oldest daughter. Lot's daughter seduced him while he was drunk, and both conceived and bore children. Moab? Okay, yeah, but I want to know why Israel would go after Moab, because that's one of the kingdoms they were not supposed to mess with, because the Moabites had already driven out the Nephilim. Well, anyway, so the elders of Moab and the elders of Midian departed with the fees for divination in their hand, and they came to Balaam and gave him Balak's message. And he said to them, "Lodge here tonight, and I will bring back word to you as the Lord speaks to me." So the princes of Moab stayed with Balaam, and God came to Balaam and said, "Who are these men with you?" And Balaam said to God, "Balak, the son of Zippor, king of Moab, has sent to me, saying, Behold, a people has come out of Egypt, and it covers the face of the earth. Now come, curse them for me. Checking back with the chat. See you, Oswald. Thanks for coming in. Perhaps I shall be able to fight against them and drive them. Said to Balaam, you shall not go with them. You shall not curse the people, for they are blessed. So Balaam rose in the morning and said to the princes of Balak, go to your own land, for the Lord has refused to let me go with you. So the princes of Moab rose and went to Balak and said, Balaam refuses to come with us. I'm not going to read it all, but they basically up the ante. They offer more. They tried to convince him, and Balaam answered the servants, though Balak were to give me his house full of silver and gold, I could not go beyond the command of the Lord my God to do less or more. And sent him back again. And God came to Balaam at night and said to him, if the men have come to call you, rise, go with them, but only do what I tell you. So in the morning when they were supposed to leave, Balaam went with them. But God's anger was kindled because he went, and the angel of the Lord took his stand in the way. As his adversary. Now he was riding on the donkey, and his two servants were with him, and the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, some say that would be Michael, standing in the road with a drawn sword in his hand, and the donkey turned aside out of the road and went into the field. And Balaam struck the donkey to turn her into the road. Then the angel of the Lord stood in a narrow path between the vineyards, with a wall on either side. And when the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, she pushed against the wall and pressed Balaam's foot against the wall. So he struck her again. Then the angel of the Lord went ahead and stood in a narrow place where there was no way to turn either to the right or to the left. And when the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, she lay down under Balaam. And Balaam's anger was kindled, and he struck the donkey with his staff. Then the Lord opened the mouth of the donkey, and she said to Balaam, what have I done to you that you have struck me these 3 times? And Balaam said to the donkey, because you have made a fool of me. I wish I had a sword in my hand, for then I would kill you. He isn't surprised that the donkey's talking. And the donkey said to Balaam, am I not your donkey, on which you have ridden all your life long to this day? Is it my habit to treat you this way? And he said, no. Then the Lord opened the eyes of Balaam, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in his way with his drawn sword in his hand, and he bowed down and fell on his face. The angel says, why did you strike the donkey? And he explains. And then the angel says, I would have killed you and let her, not turned aside from me. And the angel of the Lord says to Balaam, "Go with the men, but speak only the word that I tell you." Because Balaam was going to go ahead and curse the Israelites. And Balaam goes to the city of Moab, and tells the king he can only speak the word that God puts in his mouth. And then we got to go to chapter 3, 23, sorry. And they build an altar, they do sacrifices, and Balak wants Balaam to curse the Israelites, but seven altars and offerings, a bull and a ram on each altar. And the Lord put a word in Balaam's mouth and said, "Return to Balak, and thus you shall speak." And there's a long poem here. Where he says, Balak brought me to curse the Israelites, but how can I denounce whom the Lord has not denounced? For from the top of the crags I see him, from the hills I behold him. Behold, a people dwelling alone and not counting itself among the nations. Who can count the dust of Jacob or number the fourth part of Israel? Let me die the death of the upright, and let my end be like this. And Balak is all pissed off. I brought you here to curse my enemies, but you blessed them. It goes on and on and on. But then, chapter 25, while Israel lived in Shittim, the people began to whore with the daughters of Moab. These invited the people to the sacrifices of their gods, and the people ate and bowed down to their gods. So Israel yoked himself to Baal of Peor. Baal is the enemy, the false god, the god of the Philistines and others, the Assyrians and all kinds of pagans. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel. Now this is while Moses was still alive. And the Lord said to Moses, "Take all the chiefs of the people and hang them in the sun before the Lord, that the fierce anger of the Lord may turn away from Israel." And Moses said to the judges of Israel, "Each of you kill those of his men who have yoked themselves to Baal of Peor." So apparently paganism is quite attractive when you're looking at it from outside. Hi, Angela. Good to see you. I was going through the stories of Nephilim, and I took a side road to Balaam and his donkey, his talking donkey. Root beer float. Gotta have another potato chip. We're talking about Nephilim. Hmm. Oh, what have I done? There. I clicked something I shouldn't have. It messed up my screen for a minute. Oh, let's see, Quinty. And the people bowed and prayed to the neon god they made. Yes. In the song of silence. And the sign said, the words of the prophets are written on the subway walls and tenement halls and echoed in the wells of silence. I think that's where that line belongs. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Nephilim and Enoch. They say that the Hebrew word Nephilim means giants. It isn't really a Hebrew word. It doesn't follow proper Hebrew grammar. According to Dr. Michael S. Heiser, it's probably a borrowed word from another language, possibly Ugaritic or Aramaic, but it does mean giants. And so the New Testament uses the Greek word gigantes, which doesn't necessarily mean they're huge, big, tall people. It means earthborn, but because in Greek myth, the Titans, the old gods, were earthborn. Their mother was the earth. Well, not necessarily, but that's a long story. Earthborn probably does mean giant. The Titans were gods, but they were also giants. Oh, see you, Ditch. Thanks for coming in. Anyway, it doesn't seem to work if you try to make it mean fallen ones, although I think it's a pun. I think it means fallen ones, but its primary meaning is giants. You know, like fallen angels, fallen ones. Most of the New Testament is in Greek because although, in Rome they spoke Latin, the Greek language was the language of scholars and politicians, and government officials had to understand Greek because they considered the Latin language too unsophisticated to use it to draft a contract, a business agreement. Used Greek in commerce, in business. Okay. Why was the book of Enoch removed from the Bible? Well, it was actually a very close vote. Many of the early fathers wanted it in, but it was found to be inconsistent with the teachings of the Torah. However, the early writers of the New Testament were quite familiar with the book of Enoch. Here's one. Was Goliath a descendant of the Nephilim? We don't know. But they might be either from the Rephaim or the Anakim. The Anakim or Anakim. Yeah, I believe that is actually the same word as the Anunnaki of the ancient Middle Eastern religion. Anakim were tall people or giants who lived in southern Palestine before the Hebrews arrived and were then destroyed or scattered. They lived in the region that later became Edom and Moab, near Hebron, during the time of Abraham. And another Merriam-Webster's dictionary says the Anakim are aboriginal giants reported in the Old Testament to have inhabited southern Palestine before the Hebrews entered the land and virtually annihilated them. What happened to the Anakim in the Bible? Joshua finally expelled the Anakim from the land, except for some who found a refuge in the Philistine cities of Gaza, Gath, and Ashdod. In the book of Joshua, chapter 11. Thus, some scholars conclude that the Philistine giants, such as Goliath, whom David encountered, were descendants of the Anakim. Well, these were real people. As Sequentia says, Anakim literally means giants. Remember the Anunnaki of ancient Babylon and Ur and so forth claimed that they made us and we should worship them. They're liars. But they were giants. Gilgamesh, said to be part Anunnaki, was a giant. Not 40 feet tall, but probably about 12 feet. Even an 8 or 9 foot giant could stand outside a single story house and put his hands on the roof without using a ladder. Yeah, it does at Sequentia. Anakim and Nephilim both seem to be related to the Hebrew word for fall, but they line up better with giant. However, as I said, I think it's a pun. Nephilim, at least, does mean giant, but not in Hebrew. It's grammatically messed up if you try to make it a Hebrew word. But I think that in the background of your mind, when you read giant with the word Nephilim, you want to think fallen ones, fallen angels. Oh, Morgan. Hi, Morgan. Welcome in. What do I think of the Nephilim being an alien genetic interference by the Confederation of Light that went wrong? Well, the thing about, sorry, my nose is wanting to run but not quite doing it. Aliens, whether they came from the Pleiades or were born right here, they live here now. I really suspect that humans are not native to this planet. That any non-human, intelligent, technological race that's here lives here. That's my conclusion after years of fascination with UFO lore and um, Bigfoot and other mysteries that scientists refuse to investigate. Oh, it's only anecdotal. Well, I'm sorry. Anecdotal evidence is the starting point for investigation, not the end point. Hmm. I'm so glad I went out in the heavy drizzle and cold and fog and got cigarettes. I'd be going nuts if I hadn't. Well, anyway, I think we're all familiar with Genesis chapter 6. And there were giants in the earth in those days when the sons of God mated with the daughters of men. Sons of God is a word for members of God's heavenly host everywhere in the Bible and in Genesis. Now, according to Dr. Heiser and other scholars, when could be interpreted as whenever. There were giants in the earth in those days whenever the sons of God mated with human women. Makes more sense. Well, anyway, then it says the same were the mighty men of old, men of renown. According again to Dr. Michael S. Heiser, and a few others like Chuck Missler, it really says men of bad reputation. You know, kind of like Goliath, a mighty warrior, but bad reputation. Yeah, Anakim literally means giants. And there could have been very tall people. They might have been completely human. But when you read that they had 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, you kind of wonder. And there are other, what we might call physical deformities that suggest that they had some kind of genetic problem. Maybe a very human genetic defect, or maybe they were hybrids between humans and aliens, humans and angels, humans and the sons of God. I just refuse to buy the idea that the righteous sons of Seth married the sinful children of Cain. Even Cain, after he sinned and murdered his brother, although the story makes it sound like he didn't intend to kill him, he just struck him and then went, oh my God. Remember, there's no mention of people dying before that. Well, anyway, even Cain still worshiped God. He was still faithful and repentant. And he accepted his punishment. He whined a little, well, everyone who sees me will kill me. So God said, I'll put a mark on your forehead so they know that they better not touch you. Okay, et sequentia. And who says the sons of Seth are necessarily righteous? Who knows? So it isn't the sons of Seth and the daughters of Cain. It's something bad going on with these Nephilim. Okay, so et sequentia says, some think reptilian lizard people have always been living in subterranean cities deep underground, just waiting to go to the surface and take over. Some think they govern California. That's not, well, it's meant to be a joke, but it isn't much of a joke. It might as well be lizard people. The Slee Stack are taking over. Oh, wow. What a day. What a morning. The fog isn't as thick now. That's a good sign. Right, Patches? Right, Tora? Tora, you haven't said hi to your adoring fans this morning. I'll move the camera. It's easier than lifting a 20-pound cat. Yeah, there's glare, but you can see. Gotta get the paws and ears all cleaned up. Patches is in the dark. Can't really get her on camera without picking her up. And she's so comfortable where she is, all curled up. I don't want to bother her. So then there's the Book of Enoch, which goes into great detail. First Enoch. There's Finnish, that as in Finland, version that has survived. There's the Ethiopic. The Ethiopians include the Book of Enoch in their Bible. And there's fragments among the Dead Sea Scrolls, along with references to and quotes from Enoch in many writings, not only of the early Christians, but of Jewish scholars before the Christian era. In the Second Temple period, in particular, roughly from the return from Babylon to Jerusalem until 0, or there is no year 0, until 1 AD. For some reason, our timeline does not have a year 0. It can mess up the math when you're trying to do math. Let's see. I always get the dates wrong because I don't remember them. Babylonian exile years. 70 years from the Babylonian captivity started either in 586 BC or 597 BC. Different sources disagree. And the Jewish people were either held in Babylon for 48 years or 59 years. But it was supposed to be 70 years, so they got off easy. The Persian king Cyrus the Great allowed them to return to Jerusalem in 538 BC. However, they didn't all go. Many of the Israelites were very happy living in Babylon. They had a good life there. And they were not all slaves. Most notably, Daniel became a high official in the kingdom. However, so from the return of exile, once the second temple was built, remember Solomon's temple was destroyed. From that date until about 70 AD, when the Romans destroyed the temple, is the Second Temple period, or intertestamental. The Second Temple, later known as Herod's Temple, because he kind of dressed it up and called it after himself, gave it his name. It was reconstructed between 516 BC. It was built in 516 BC and destroyed in 70 AD. So we've got a period of over 500, almost 600 years that's intertestamental, but most of the writing was between either 200 or 300 BC and 100 AD. Oh dear, Etsequentio recently managed to learn the timeline system. Until now, he couldn't tell which century was which. The 19th century AD ends in 1900. The 20th century ends in 2000, and so on. Yeah. Yep. The 20th century was supposed to be the time of a roaring economy, industrialization, and prosperity for all. Didn't work out that way. The depression of the 1930s was worldwide. It was global. And we might be heading into another one. Especially since we're ruled over by lizard people. We're supposed to be self-governing. We're a democratic republic where you have laws that apply to everyone, as in any republic. No one is above the law, except Gavin Newsom, or Gruesome Newsom, the governor of California. Well, anyway, but we vote on many things, especially in local areas, cities, counties, states. Although the states kind of have a Republican form of government and law, you can really influence local policies with your votes, much more than state or national. But I think we're being ruled by lizard people, whether they're literally lizards or just have that mentality. They don't care about us. Did you see, there's a clip going around YouTube. Donald Trump was on his way to court and he saw a skyscraper being built and he stopped to talk to the union workers. And they were all wearing MAGA swag, MAGA hats and shirts. Well, not all of them, but more than half of them. And they were happy to see him. They wanted autographs and selfies and stuff. And he's on his way to court where he might get convicted and go to jail. Although I don't think they can put him in jail as long as he has Secret Service protection. The best they can do is house arrest, because the Secret Service isn't going to sit in a jail cell with anyone. Maybe that's why, I forget whether he's a senator or a representative. I don't call them congressmen because that's confusing. The House of Representatives is not the Congress. The House plus the Senate together make up the Congress. Well, anyway, some politician in D.C. wants to make it that anyone who's sentenced to at least a year, at least 1 day more than a year, in other words, a felony conviction, loses Secret Service protection. And I don't think Biden would sign it because it would jeopardize his son if he should be convicted. But we'll see. You never know what these lizard people are going to do. I had an experience once. I don't know if it was a seizure or a demonic attack or both, but I fell to the floor. This was at night. I was coming back from the bathroom to go back to bed, and I was alone. I fell to the floor and my brain began to shut down. I only had what we call a lizard brain functioning. I didn't have any words or logical thought. Everything was just black or white, danger or not danger. You can eat it, you can't eat it. Very binary. Thank God it didn't last long. It was terrible. Well, that has never happened again. I really think I was dealing with demons, my mother's demons. Father Malachi Martin says that if a parent is possessed, the demons think they have a claim on their children. Poor Etsy Quintia, his brain shuts down every day. Well, even when I'm sleeping, when I have dreams, I still have thought processes and words and logic and feelings. I didn't have real emotions at that point. And it was less than a minute, but it was scary. I didn't have an identity or a name. Anyway, I think my mother's demons thought they had a claim on me. And in situations where I was able to check and line things up, it happened when my mother was asleep and not when she was awake. Didn't matter whether I was awake or asleep. although I was more vulnerable when I was sleeping, was most often when I was sleeping, or at least going to sleep or trying to go to sleep. The weirdest one, though, my brother was working night shift on a psychiatric ward. I had a dream that I was searching the cupboards for Charlie's medication because Charlie was throwing fits. And when I asked what happened your work last night, he said, "Well, Charlie was throwing fits, so I had to find his medication." He didn't question the fact that I knew something had happened, even though I had no physical way of knowing that something had happened. We had a sort of psychic connection, my brother and me, or my brother and I, if you want to be grammatical. I've found that good grammar is impossible. It's my native tongue makes no sense, but we speak it because we grow up speaking it, and it just, that's the way it is, and we know it. Our brains are trained to work with this god-awful language. Well, anyway, I've done another hour, and I think it's time for us to get started on the day, or in some cases, to finish the day, or get lunch, or dinner, or supper. By the way, dinner, not that long ago, maybe 100 years, maybe more like 150 years ago, dinner was what we call lunch. And it was the biggest meal of the day, but it was in the middle of the day. And then supper, the evening meal, was a very light meal. They didn't want you to have a big full tummy when you were trying to go to sleep. It might disturb your sleep. And breakfast usually came after you'd been working for a couple hours, as soon as the sun came up. After all, usually the wife and mother had to get up, in odd cases it might be a man, but it's usually the wife and mother had to get up and cook something to eat. So while she was doing that, the men were out working in the fields and the barn and so forth. I like the idea of making lunch a big meal. Anyway, let's get this show on the road. Let's start our days or end our days or whatever we're doing. At Sequentia, I heard some politicians say somewhere, if English was good enough for Jesus, it's good enough for us. That sounds like a politician. He probably spoke Aramaic, because even 500 years after the Babylonian exile ended, people still spoke the Babylonian language, Aramaic. But he knew he read from Isaiah in the, I can't call it a temple, synagogue. It's one of those words that I blank on. And then the people were stunned when he said, "This day these prophecies have been fulfilled." So anyway, yeah, English is good enough for me. Reminds me of that song from the Music Man, Shapoopy. Some other time. They use that tune for ditty about something is good enough for me. It's the same tune. Yeah, I'm running out of people juice too. So thank you all for listening and have a great day. Welcome in, Andrew. Unfortunately, we're at the end of the show. I think I've done a total of 3 hours today because I've done 2. Well, I won't end it yet if you just finished using your Gusha 9000. I'm going to check the whatever, the internet thingy. How's your battery? That battery's good. Modem, that's what that thingy is. This is the second one today. I had to take a break and go buy cigarettes because I ran out. And then I got potato chips and donuts and root beer and Fritos. So this second one was primarily passages from the Bible, the Nephilim in 2 Peter chapter 2, and Balaam's donkey in Numbers, I think, chapter 22. Yeah, everything I like is bad for me. What you gonna do? When I bought a horse without asking my parents, Mom said, "That horse is gonna kill you." Well, he almost did, but I didn't care. Well, I'm going to be 70 in June, Andrew. And if genetics are worth anything, I'll make it well into my 80s and possibly early 90s, no matter what I do. Smoking killed my grandfather, but he was 88. Granny lived to 93, that's 5 years difference, which is the statistical average. Women live 5 years longer. And on Dad's side, Dad made it to 86, and he not only smoked, but had a desk job and got fat. Mom, we don't know because she killed herself. Oh, I kept the horse at a place where I had to pay rent every month. Yeah, being happy is the best tonic, I think, for health. Anyway, not to worry. I'm more likely to die in a car crash than from cigarettes. No, money doesn't buy. Money buys a place to live and some food to eat. It doesn't buy happiness. Happiness is a choice. Yeah, George Burns lived to be 100. He smoked cigars. Anyway, when you encounter problems, you can go, "Oh, problem," or you can go, "Oh, a problem to solve. Let me get into that." Now, money buys relief and rights. Money keeps you secure, except when you're scared that someone else is going to steal it. At this point, social services can't decide whether I get food stamps or not. They keep going back and forth over some paperwork, and I've submitted it 3 times now. Oh, we don't have it. We can't find it. You didn't send it. We would have it if you'd sent it. Ugh. So we'll see. They aren't enough anyway. I got the chips and Fritos and cigarettes and root beer and donuts. I went mad at the mini mart. I've been on this second one for almost an hour and a half. We really need to start our days or end our days or have lunch or whatever, depending on the time where you are. More eye itchies. Yeah, it's 20 past 11 in the morning here. But since I really didn't have breakfast, I need lunch. Yes, Andrew, I live on a mountain. Uh, oh, eye itchies. Raising Isaiah is here, and we're wrapping up. We really are. But I'll be back. I'm going to try to stay up late enough to do a nighttime version this week. We'll see. But I'm running out of steam and things to say. Someday I'll pull out my dollar store makeup finds and demonstrate them. All the dollar stores and 99-cent stores, at least in California, are shutting down. They can't make a profit when most of their inventory gets shoplifted. I feel okay, Andrew. I'm just hungry. Raising Isaiah would love to catch an evening chat. Well, I'm on Pacific time, West Coast. Some websites call it Alaska time. Yeah. Okay, guys, no fighting in the chat. Be nice. You're all nice, and you're wonderful, and you're the reason I come on to YouTube and go live. All of you have a great day, and I'll see you on the flip flop. I can't remember which radio DJ used to say that. He'd say, I'll catch you on the flip flop. Someone broke Andrew's heart. Okay, guys. Catch you later. And don't be heartbroken. Find new opportunities. See ya.